So when God finally had me down to almost nothing, he had something he could work with. But it took a long time. It took a long time because I was still clinging to notions about forgiveness, for instance, that were completely backwards. Number one, and this might be something some of you disagree with, which is fine. But one of the things I began to believe is that my main problem was I hadn't forgiven myself. I don't believe in self-forgiveness. I did then, but I don't believe anymore. My problem was not self-forgiveness. My problem was that I couldn't forgive myself. I had not sinned against myself. And forgiveness is not something which I generate within me. Forgiveness, I'd sinned against God, a lot of other people too, and forgiveness comes from Him. My problem wasn't I hadn't forgiven myself. My problem was I was trying to manipulate the forgiveness I needed from God. Manipulate it how? Well, a number of different ways. One was why simply trying to beat myself up so much that I finally was a proper atonement for my sins. I mean, if I'm filled with enough shame, if I've bloodied myself up enough, then maybe God will look at me and say, okay, I'll forgive you now. Because I've got to earn God's forgiveness. I got to make sure that I'm a worthy recipient of that forgiveness. And the only way that I'm going to do that is by a woe is me, I'm so awful, I'm so terrible kind of approach. That's what I was thinking. I got to earn God's forgiveness. And then I got to forgive myself. Both of which were completely wrong. But I had this twisted view of forgiveness, and so I was struggling with that. And here's another thing I was struggling with. Okay, how do you talk to the God that you don't know whether He's ready to attack you, hates you, loves you, is bored with you, or simply walked in the other direction? How do you talk to God like that? I mean, it's hard enough if you're in a relationship with someone and you don't know where you stand with them, right? At least they're right in your face. You can maybe get a feel from them as to how you should address them. I had no idea. Do I scream at God? Do I beg God? Do I remain silent? What do I do? Well, thankfully, one night I got stuck, which happened frequently in the oil field. And when you get stuck, what they do is you call in and they say, okay, we'll get a dozer to you to pull you out. And the dozer is going to get there in about 3 to 5 hours. So you're going to sit there alone in the dark. Well, it just so happened that I did carry in the cab of my truck a copy of the Psalms. And that night, without anything else to do, I turned on the cab light and I pulled out the book of Psalms and I began to pray the Psalms, not for the first time, but for the first real time. And I was shocked.